everybody. Jeff Jones here. Welcome to the weekly Chase Oaks Church podcast. Before we dive in, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and download the Chase Oaks Church app. The app is the best place to catch up on messages, engage with our community, and stay in the loop with everything going on around here. Most importantly, my hope is that today's message inspires you to take your next step in your faith journey. Here we go.
Well, welcome to Chase Oaks Church. I am pumped to be here. Yes, I mean, if you're pumped to be here, that's great too. Because it's at the movies at Chase Oaks, which is so exciting. It's where we connect biblical truth and spiritual themes to some of the most popular stories that are in our culture today. But also with that, I'm pumped about today's movie, Project Hail Mary. But here's an inside track real quick. We almost weren't able to do the movie, not because we didn't want to, we really did. So when the movie came out in theaters a couple of months ago, a group of us went to go watch it together. In fact, I need to give a shout out to a Legacy Campus Dream Teamer. His name is Ben Brown. He's either here tonight or tomorrow or on Sunday, and he's probably making popcorn out there. He's on like every dream team imaginable, but he also happens to be a movie buff, so he joined us too. And so we saw the movie in the theaters. We all loved it. After the movie was done, Ben emailed me this cliff notes of ideas. So if you like something today, it's probably a Ben-based idea. Just letting you know that. And so with that, we all loved it. We wanted to use it. But here's the thing. Project Hail Mary, because of its massive box office success, the theater run was extended, which is great for the movie theater, movie studios, but it's terrible for us. Because for us to be able to do it during this series, a movie has to be released digitally. I mean, I'm sure you can understand that me going into a movie theater, filming clips with my iPhone is a bad idea. It's like you could see the headlines right now, like pastor caught bootlegging movie in theater. You know, he insists it's for a movie, we doubt it, that kind of thing. But thankfully, I was about to have to pivot to a whole other movie. Because my heart wasn't into it. I was really struggling. And then Amazon released it just about 2 days before a deadline that we had to be able to do it. And I'm so glad that we've been able to do it because the movie's great. And it's easy to see the appeal of it. I mean, because you have this broad interstellar story that is also so personal, so human, so deeply emotional. I mean, we just heard it in the song that we heard that Johnny did here at the Legacy Campus, a sign of the times. It's deeply emotional. And also the story can be quite sciencey. It talks about things like molecular, biology and physics and all of that, and yet it's also funny and moving and awe-inspiring. It was a story that was written by the same guy who wrote The Martian. If you're familiar with that movie, that was Matt Damon. There was a story behind it. This guy has a knack for combining all of that sorts of stuff in a really human and fun way. At its core, it's also a buddy movie. We'll get to my friend up here in a second named Rocky. It's a bromance of sorts. But ultimately, Project Hail Mary is about searching. It's the search for a solution, which is often the catalyst for quests that happen in our world today where something feels urgent, that we need to pursue, that we have a problem, that we need to find an answer for, and that certainly happens in this movie. There's also the search for connection, that you and I live in a lonely world, and as we'll see, the galaxy can be a lonely place as well. And so they search for connection happens in this movie. And perhaps the most fundamental quest that can happen for all of us, the search for significance, meaning, and identity. That those are the things that are at the core of us, of like, who am I in this world and all of this stuff that's happening all around me, and that certainly happens in this movie. But in a way, you and I are also searchers as well. That all of these different categories up there, our circumstances are different than the movie, but you and I can think of different ways, different things that maybe you're searching for in your world, in your life right now, and the movie speaks to us because it speaks to these types of quests that we can be on in our life. But while there's a lot of searching in our world, what I've observed and what I've felt in my own life is there's little finding. It's interesting, this is an anecdotal thing, but Netflix had a study that they did that where they found out that the average user of Netflix spends about 18 to 20 minutes a day trying to find a show to watch on the platform. And so if you can imagine, if it's hard for us to find a show to binge, imagine how much more challenging it is when it comes to some of these more fundamental, bigger quests that happen in our lives, in our world. I like how the Apostle Paul words it, because today we're going to talk about what it takes to search well. And he says in 1 Corinthians 9, starting in verse 24, he says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? So run in such a way as to get the prize." And he's talking about himself here. He says, "Therefore I do not run like someone who is running aimlessly." You know, when it comes to the quests in our life, how can we be purposeful, not aimless, in what it is that we are seeking out? Because the way that you and I go about searching impacts what we'll find, or if we'll find anything at all. And so this movie, as we think about it, is going to be really helpful as we talk about search mode. And as we'll see, the Bible has a lot to talk about when it comes to searching as well. And so if you're in search mode today, which honestly all of us are in search mode to some degree or another, I want you to think about what it is that you might be looking for, whether it's that maybe it is you have a problem that's in your life where you really want to find an answer, you're not sure what the solution is, and so have that in your head. Or perhaps you are looking for a connection, that your world feels a little lonely right now, or you're trying to find friendship, or you're trying to find a significant other, or you're trying to deepen the relationships that are in your life, or perhaps you're searching for God, or you're searching for significance and meaning, and have that in your mind, because as we look at the movie and as we also just dive into what the Bible has to say about searching, I think it's going to be so helpful, because there really are two characteristics that I want to hone in on that I think are key to us searching well, to searching with purpose. And so the movie starts us off right away in search mode. It drops us right from the first frame. We meet a guy who is waking up out of a coma, and we don't know anything about him, and he doesn't know anything about himself. He has no memory. He can barely move and speak. He has this strange robot that's starting to talk to him for some reason, and he is trying to get his bearings and find out what the heck is going on. Let's watch. He is indeed smart, and I love how the movie does this, where as the story progresses, he starts to have flashbacks that are reminders of, as his memory is returning, about who he is and how he got to outer space and why he's so disoriented. And what he starts to remember through these flashbacks is that his name is Dr. Ryland Grace. He is indeed smart. He was a former middle school science teacher, a somewhat normal, dorky kind of science teacher. In fact, he'd wear shirts like this. This is why I wore this one. I wear this shirt periodically. He'd wear shirts like that. Have you had teachers that did? It's so great. There's great t-shirts throughout this entire movie, but he's also a former molecular biologist as well, which this is just as a side note. This is the magic of movies, right? That they can somehow make Ryan Gosling out to be a normal dude. Or that somehow the guy that played, Ken in the movie Barbie is now a molecular biologist. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, it's magical movies, but that's what happens in here. So he starts to remember more about who he is, but he also remembers that there is a problem that he is trying to solve, that he is searching for a solution to a really big issue that Earth is facing. That as he has these flashbacks, he remembers that scientists on Earth have discovered that there is this mysterious, microscopic parasite that is feeding off of our sun. And as it's feeding off of the sun, it's causing it to dim, which would mean that the sun is giving off less heat, which means that it would cause the Earth to cool, with catastrophic implications for life, that life would have trouble surviving to the same degree as it is because of the sun's cooling. And even more challenging, that as they discover this issue with our sun, they looked around nearby stars in the solar systems that are nearby, and they discover that all the other stars have the same problem. They call this parasite astrophage. So astrophage are feeding off of all these different suns all over the place, except for one star that is a fairly long distance away. And so scientists on Earth, they plan this manned mission, to send a few astronauts out to that star to find out what's going on, that maybe there's a solution that can help Earth and fight off the astrophage. But a challenge that they come into is that because of the distance of how far away that star is, they can only generate enough fuel for the trip, for this manned mission to be a one-way trip. And so these astronauts are gonna go out, hopefully find a solution, send the answer back in probes, and then be lost in space. And that's if they can find a solution. And so it's a long shot. And that's why they call it Project Hail Mary. And I love that the author of the story, because he's the one that named it and he's the one that titled the story and the project. I love that he calls it Project Hail Mary because I think he is trying to make a connection between science and faith, science and religion. If you grew up Catholic, you would know that there's a prayer that's, Hail Mary, full of grace. And in this story, what we see is we see a spaceship named Hail Mary that is full of Dr. Grace as a scientific prayer of sorts that is being sent out as a desperate plea for help. And I love that the author makes this connection because oftentimes in our world, it can seem like, people make it out to seem like, you've got science and faith and science and religion that they're enemies, and they're not enemies. They're related in a profound and deeply profound way. And maybe you have that issue as well as you're stepping into a church building today and you're curious about this whole thing, that sometimes it can feel like, okay, I have to kind of check my brain at the door and not bring my questions in with it, or that faith somehow means I have to ignore reality or suspend reality. And my argument to you would be that I think we actually, when it comes to faith, it's not suspending reality, it's actually a full realization of reality. That you and I should dive headfirst into the creation that we're all around us, and that things like the scientific method are super helpful. They help us understand how the universe works. And how the universe works is incredible. It's intricate, it's orderly, it's beautiful, and you and I should explore it all the more because I think as we do, we will see the amazingness that's all in it and something that's deeper behind it. It should increase our awe that there is something more. In fact, it did it for a key leader in the Old Testament. His name is David, and he wrote a lot of the Psalms that maybe you're familiar with. And in Psalm 8, he says this. He says, this is King David, when I look at the night sky and I see the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you set in place, what are mere mortals that you should care about them? Human beings that you should care for them. That you and I, and you know this, like we've experienced this if you've ever been camping or out on the lake, that as you look up, you get so much perspective about life and about the world. Interestingly enough, if you and I ever had the privilege of looking down from up above in space, we would have the same thing. Psychologists have actually studied this among astronauts today. They've noticed something that they call the overview effect. And what it is that when they've talked to astronauts after they've been in space for a while and they come back from their journey, that it is something that they've recorded as a common phenomenon, that many of them are overwhelmed with awe, that they feel a deeper sense of connection to humanity and an amazing wonder at the universe that we're in. This happened most recently even with the latest trip to the moon on Artemis 2. There was a commander, his name's Reed Weissman. He's not a religious guy at all. But as he was up in space and as the whole crew was up there, they saw something that no other human eye has ever seen before. It was a total solar eclipse, but it was from the far side of the moon. In fact, they got a picture of it, which doesn't do justice to the picture or to the actual thing. Like some of us remember when there was the total solar eclipse here, and you tried to take a picture of it, and it just didn't do justice for how amazing it is. And this was the same thing for them, that they got a picture, but as they were processing this together, this was what Commander Weissman said. He said, I think all of us turned to Victor. Like on the trip, there was a few astronauts. Victor was the pilot. He's a devout Christian. He's actually on several space missions before. He's taken up communion with them. Like taking zero gravity communion's got to be pretty cool. And Victor's done that before. And so this is Reed again talking. He said, I think all of us on the trip, we all turned to Victor, this Christian, and said, I don't think humanity has evolved to the point of being able to comprehend what we're looking at right now. Because it was otherworldly. It was amazing. And then after they landed and they're doing these press conferences, Commander Weissman, he's processing this and a reporter's talking to him. And this is what he said as he's processing his experience. He says, I'm not a religious person, but there was just no avenue to explain my experience, the vastness of all that he saw. So I asked for a chaplain on the Navy ship to come visit us for a moment. And when that man walked in, I've never met him before in my life, I saw the cross on his collar and I broke down in tears. that what he saw messed with his current paradigm. He's like, I don't have a mechanism. He's like a science guy, he's a great leader. He's like, I don't know how to process this. And I love what he does, what that commander did in that moment, because so many of us could have just dismissed it and kind of put it away. And I love that he showed an openness and actually a willingness to explore it some more and to talk to somebody that was probably outside of his normal realm. Say, hey, I've got big questions. I'm gonna go find a chaplain in this case. That what Commander Weissman showed in this moment is a characteristic that is so important when it comes to searching with purpose, and that's curiosity. The willingness to investigate, an openness to what we don't know, and an openness to exploring and finding out more, and even more so than just a willingness or an openness. It was a persistence. And that's what true curiosity is, a persistence to push through and to find out. And this is something that God actually invites. He encourages us to do this. I love this invitation that Jesus gives in Matthew 7, where he says, keep on asking and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking at the door and it will be opened to you. Some translations, as they reflect this verse, they say, it says, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock at the door and it'll be open to you. But I love the way this translation puts it, because the original language, the verb tense that's used here, that Jesus uses in this moment, is one that connotes a repeated, continued activity. It's a keep on exploring. It's a keep on seeking. It's a keep on asking. It's not a one-time Google search. It's not a quick conversation with ChatGPT. It's a lifestyle of curiosity and seeking and being open to what would be there, what we might find. And I love that in this movie, Dr. Grace shows incredible curiosity. Huge amounts of openness, that when he finds a problem that he doesn't know how to solve, that he's open to learning more, that when he comes into challenges that he's not sure what to do about it, that he keeps on seeking and exploring. And that includes when he runs into something that is foreign, and in this case, literally alien. Because imagine, say you're in his shoes, you're out there, you're out in deep space. Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a second. So imagine you're out in deep space. I'm gonna ask you guys to fire that again in 1 second here. You're out in deep space and you see a spaceship show up. I think most of us, the image that would come to mind is that poster that we just saw. Can we put that back up? Is there any chance? Right? I mean, when you see this spaceship come, you're like, okay, this is not gonna go good. You find, your nearby rifle, space gun, I don't know, whatever it is. But that's not what Dr. Grace does in this moment. Instead, he actually is open and curious. And that's where he starts to interact with an alien named Rocky. By the way, this Rocky here was made by another Chase Oker, John Nelson. It's so awesome that we got Chase Okers that are doing this. Yeah, you can clap for John. This is really cool. So he meets Rocky, who looks a lot different than that poster that's out there. And as they start to interact, they have to learn how to communicate. And so they come up with a method where, there's a computer that can turn Rocky's sounds into rudimentary English. And as they start to communicate, they find out that they have the same problem as each other. Astrophages are eating his son as well. That's why he's out there to try to find a solution. And it's as they talk about this solution that Rocky decides to move in. Let's watch. So great. So as they, get to know each other and they move in, what they discover is that each of their species knows a lot about some things, but are clueless about other things. And so as they combine their knowledge together, it becomes crucial in finding the solution that they want. But it's not easy. In fact, there's a lot that they have to push through in order for them to get to the point where Dr. Grace actually says, you know what, we're a lot smarter together. But their cultures are so different. I mean, the way that they eat and sleep and live and approach everything is just so foreign to each other that it doesn't automatically happen. I mean, you got a little bit in the clip we just watched. There's some annoyances that they have to process through and push through. And it's where I like how the Proverbs talks about this, because this is what they had to do in the movie. The Proverbs 18:15 says, "The heart of the discerning acquires knowledge, for the ears of the wise seek it out." And that's what they have to do. They have to push through and actually seek it out from one another. And that is the posture of curiosity, which is to say that I can learn from anyone. science people being able to say, you know what, I can learn from faith and be interested and open to what faith has to say. Faith people being open to what science has to say or mental health has to say or leadership principles have to say. I mean, for those of us that are Christians, I mean, certainly we need to run everything that we have through the filter of what God has revealed through his word. Nothing will contradict that if it's true. But Christians should be the most curious people in the world because you and I, we know of a God who is infinite and who has put his fingerprints throughout the entire creation. And that the more open you and I are to how he has designed this world to work, the more of him we will see and appreciate and deepen our understanding of him. But the more closed off we are, which unfortunately a lot of religious people can be, the more that we'll possibly miss out. I experienced this just personally. When I graduated graduate school, which it was to study to be a pastor. So I studied a lot of theology and Bible. It was great. It was really enriching. But after I finished my degree, I kind of looked out on the next phase of my life, I went through a period of intense anxiety. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. I had just gotten married. I didn't have a job. I was worried about a lot of the unknowns, and my body literally started to shut down. And so looking back, I'm like, you know what I could have really used in that moment is a counselor. And it's not that I was opposed to counseling. It's just like, it just felt so foreign to me. It just felt like something like, I just don't even know what to do or if that's something that would be open to it. And so I didn't pursue it. And now looking back, I kind of shake my head because I missed out on so many different tools that would have been so useful to my tool belt that actually would have deepened my appreciation of God and seeing him work in deeper ways. And I have some of those tools now, but I missed out on so much because I hadn't been curious enough in that moment to seek out wisdom from different people who loved God. And so I wonder what it would look like for all of us today. As you approach your life, what would it look like for us to up our curiosity a bit? You know, we live in a world where we kind of judge pretty fast. We have a lot of answers, but don't ask really great questions. We kind of dismiss and kind of separate on different sides. What would it look like to fight against that trend? Because curiosity is so key if you and I want to search with purpose. But it's not the only characteristic. There's another one that the movie does a great job of highlighting that's so important, and that's courage. This characteristic is especially important if what you and I are searching for today is significance and meaning and even some of the identity questions that we have in our life. But while it's super important, it actually can be misunderstood quite a bit about what exactly courage is. And we see this in the movie because Dr. Grace has a transformation story. He changes a lot from one point to by the time he gets to the end. And a big part of that is him realizing what courage actually is and whether or not he has it in his life. One of the most startling moments in the entire movie is when we see a flashback where Dr. Grace finally realizes what he was doing right before the launch of the mission. It's where he has a startling realization about who he is that he's gonna have to grapple with. Let's take a watch. I bet you didn't have on your list today that an alien would make you cry. But it does. It's deeply powerful, and it's so meaningful that Rocky, gives up something that is so significant, fuel, but in this case, even more significant, time. We find out he has a family back home, and he does it in order to literally give life to Grace. And there's a reason that these types of moments, whether it's in a movie or as you think even outside of movies, when you think of your own life, when someone has sacrifice something so much to give to you. There's a reason why so many of these moments deeply resonate with us because they reflect something that is profoundly true, something that Jesus taught repeatedly throughout Scripture. I mean, he was the one that came up with the phrase, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." It's a phrase that we hear a lot in our culture today that's so common, but it's actually so countercultural. Because most of us, we spend our time thinking about what we're achieving, what we're accumulating, what we're accomplishing, what we're gaining, and yet there are moments in life, or sometimes in stories that we have, where we realize that it's actually when we give that something powerful happens. Like often for my role as a pastor, I'm at a lot of funerals. And when we're at a funeral, we rarely talk about all the achievements and accomplishments and things that have been accumulated. What we talk about are how someone sacrificed and gave and uplifted others. And those are the life-giving moments that someone remembers and measures a life by, and also that they remember that they felt the most loved by someone else. And that reflects something else that Jesus taught in John 15:13, where he said, there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Which, by the way, I don't know your spiritual background here. If you're new to church, or if you had a tradition of church where you felt like God is just angry with me all the time, that was something that Jesus not only taught, it was something that he did. And when he laid down his life for you and me, what he was saying in that moment is he wants to be our friend. That God of the universe, who created all the stars in the skies, wants to have an intimate connection and relationship with me and with you, and we can have it because of him. And that Jesus would say, well, if you want to, not only did I do this, if you want to have life and if you want to experience love at a profound level, you should follow my example and lay it down in powerful ways. That's the way to true life. And that reflects what he says in Matthew 16:25, where Jesus said, if you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. That one of the greatest discoveries you and I can make in the entire universe is that meaning is found when we are a means to an end that is beyond ourselves. That's where life is found, that when we give it away for a mission that is bigger than ourselves, when we give it away for people, that something significant happens. Yes, it's costly in the moment, but we actually gain so much. We gain life. And Jesus taught this repeatedly. You've experienced this in your life, and it's something that the movie does a great job of illustrating. Because in this moment, it actually starts a spiral between these two characters where they start to serve and sacrifice for one another repeatedly. And over time, yes, it's costly, each one, and it's scary in that moment, but it actually does a number of profound things. This relationship between Rocky and Grace grows incredibly deep. And for Grace, he winds up getting a level of significance and purpose in his life that he didn't have right before the mission started. In fact, we're gonna zoom towards the end of the movie, where Rocky and Grace, they've found a solution to the astrophage problem that they've been searching for. They found a microscopic parasite, or a predator, I guess. I gotta get my science terms right, I'm a pastor, okay? They got a predator that's microscopic that feeds on the astrophage. They call it Talmeba, and so they bottle up this predator, and they take it. They say goodbye, and they each fly off to their own separate worlds to bring the solution home to their home planets. But on the way back, Grace realizes something problematic. It's that the Talmeba are leaking and are actually destroying his ship at the same time. He catches it, but realizes that because of Rocky and his ship and the way it's designed and all of that stuff, that Rocky is in dire circumstances. And that if with no help, Rocky will not make it on his own. Let's watch. So Grace finds his courage. And what he learns about courage is significant for you and I as well, because he learns that courage isn't the absence of fear. That courage is choosing to love, it's choosing to sacrifice in spite of our fear. And that as we take that scary step, and yes, it is scary, that on the other end of that step is something so significant. It's our own significance. It's our own sense of purpose. It's our own sense of love and meaning, and all of that is found on the other side of courageous steps where we give, where we make our lives a means to an end that is bigger than ourselves. There's a moment that's so significant in that clip. I just don't want you to miss it because it happens so quick. Throughout the movie, Grace has been using a whiteboard to, write down different things that he remembers about himself as these flashbacks happen. And in this moment, in that clip, as he's facing this problem with Rocky, did you notice how he wiped away the whiteboard? And instead of kind of drilling down more on who he is, he decided now is the time to map out a solution of how he could serve Rocky. And see how much purpose that he had in that moment as he's driving off. I think that's so significant because, I want to be careful as I say this, Because, there is a time to analyze ourselves. I'm all for counseling, as I shared earlier, and I'm all for self-reflection, and I'm all for diving into who we are and how God's wired us and all that. But there is a danger with that, and there's a point where we can almost get so focused on that we can become self-focused in that decision. That we're looking so much internally that at some point we become kind of anxious. Like some of my most anxious times that I've had in my life have come when I've just been sitting in seasons where I've been kind of analyzing myself, getting over analytical. And that perhaps the way that we can find some of the significance we're looking for is to wipe away some of that and start mapping out how we can serve. To say, hey, maybe I need to ask a little less of like, okay, who am I and what am I here to do? And wipe it away and say, how can I serve? And it's so cool when we do that. I mean, the movie, this decision that Grace makes actually opens his life up to a much bigger world than that he could ever have dreamed of. And you have to watch the movie to be able to see what that is. But even without knowing that this leads to a huge world for him and a great decision, that even in this moment, he has so much purpose, so much meaning. He's no longer adrift. Because what he's found is he's found the courage to say, I'm gonna look outward, I'm gonna connect with others in a deep way, and I'm gonna sacrifice for them. And that's how he found what he was looking for. In other words, he showed curiosity and he showed courage. And so I don't know what it is that you're searching for today, but as you think about whatever that might be, what would it look like for us to up both of these things in our life? Like as you think about curiosity right now, what would it look like to make this a summer of curiosity? Where you take that class or you have that conversation with that neighbor that you never talked to, or you read that book or that podcast, or you learn in that way, or you decide to press in on an issue that you've been facing. And even one of the best ways that you can do that is join a group with some other people who have similar challenges as you. That something is powerful about community, that when we are trying to be curious together, like God actually pulls us together. So join that young marrieds group or that young adult group or that empty nester group or whatever kind of group, and find ways to be curious with each other. What's one way this summer that you can up your curiosity, because it will make all the difference in how you can be purposeful in what you're searching for. And when it comes to significance and meaning, the great news, we don't have to look far for that. Like you don't have to travel to the ends of the earth. You don't have to go to some weird solar system to find that. The great news is it's on the other side of a courageous step today. And that's scary. But when you and I make the decision to say, hey, how can I serve? Where are there people in my life that I can sacrifice for? Yes, it might be costly in the moment, but I guarantee you, if you think of one way this week that you can give something away for the sake of something that's bigger than you, that a week from now, as you look back, it'll be the most life-giving moment of your week, because that's how God works. And in whatever way that you're searching for today, let's remember the words of Jesus. Keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on searching. I'm gonna add one, keep on serving with that. And the cool thing is, he's gonna meet you in that process, I believe, in a powerful way. Would you pray with me? Father, I thank you for this opportunity to talk to you, the God of the universe, who made the stars, who put the heavens in place, and yet who loves us so deeply that you came into this world to seek us out. And so, Father, as we're searching today, would you meet us in a profound way? Before this service, I was praying for the person that would walk into this room who's really searching and just really stuck. And Father, would you unstuck them in whatever it is that they're dealing with? Would you meet them with energy and companions and opportunities to serve so that we can find significance in a profound way? Thank you for the sacrifice of Jesus. And it's in his name that we pray these things. Amen. God bless.